Hello, this video has taken me longer than I had hoped to record, but I'm now here. I'm ready to talk about all the things I've done since my son's autism diagnosis last summer in 2022. So as ever, I want to start the video with a bit of a disclaimer. Whatever I talk about, the way I'm talking about things, I only want that to come across in a positive way. I never intend to offend anybody or kind of trigger anybody by the way that I'm looking at all these different avenues and these ways to support my son, and I really hope that comes across. Okay, so to recap, my son was diagnosed with autism last summer, and what I identified pretty quickly is that we weren't going to have the same sort of pathway or support like we did when we received his cleft diagnosis. Cleft is very much, you know, you're assigned a cleft nurse who works very closely with you to ensure that you're supported and you kind of understand the process as things go along. But after an autism diagnosis, it's very much, you know, you're kind of waiting on appointments, or there's not that immediate one-to-one with somebody. I could be wrong, that's just my experience. At the point of diagnosis, we were issued a slip that allowed us to book onto what they call an early bird course in our county, but from conversations with other people, they were still waiting to get on the early bird support even a year on, so that to me wasn't quick enough. So I wanted to be proactive. I wanted to do things that I felt were going to be beneficial for me to understand things, for getting help for my son, and also things that I could implement pretty much straight away for him to help him become happy, healthy and confident. The things that I'm going to look at are courses, tests that we've done, equipment and supplements. Some will have a mention without a recommendation to do so, and some will be recommended. None of what I'm talking about is affiliated, it's just personal experience and what we are going through and what we have discovered. So again, I hope that's pretty clear as well. So post-diagnosis, the first thing I wanted to do was expand my knowledge to understand what neurodiversity means, what autism is, how the brain works, what works well, what isn't working as efficiently, and the first course I did was actually a government funded course, I believe, and it was free and online, and it was learning about autism. This is not a course I recommend for newly diagnosed parents. The course, whilst there were lots of stats and facts and figures, they weren't exactly positive. So my takeaways were basically the rate of unemployment, those who are adults living at home, and comorbidities. That is all that I really remember from the course. So whilst it might be beneficial for some, for me it wasn't empowering or encouraging, so it's not necessarily something that I would recommend to others. So the next course I did was actually on Amen University. So this is an online university where you can do courses through Dr. Daniel Amen and his colleagues. He is somebody that I have followed for a long time now on Instagram, and I love his work. I find it fascinating. They do brain scans to see what's working well, where the blood's flowing to, where it's not getting to as efficiently. And this particular course was Autism: A New Way Forward, and this is 100% a course I recommend, and there will be links below. For me, I wanted to understand, you know, my science knowledge is very, very basic, and I wanted kind of layman's terms of what this part does, what that part does in the brain, and do these sides, you know, talk to each other and what have you. They share examples of really common brain scans of those who are diagnosed with autism, and what part is overactive, what part is underactive, and that gave me a really, really good understanding of like what might be going on with Will. Beyond that, they talk about testing for deficiencies, ensuring that, you know, the body, you know, working from the inside out, making sure that everything is nice and healthy. Various tests you can do, dietary alterations that you can do, and for me it was just a really, really encouraging course that I could be proactive beyond, and that just gave me so much insight and knowledge. So it's Dr. Daniel Amen and a paediatrician, so I think combined they had something like 65 years in service of working with children and babies to young adults and all the way through, and supporting those sorts of individuals that need that little bit of extra support. Highly recommend. So the next course I did was actually around potty training. Now I was starting to get a little bit anxious that Will was at the later stage of when you would typically potty train a child. The average, you know, he was closer to 4 by about, you know, he's like 3 weeks off being 4. And the competitive side of me was like, right, we need to do this. But also I wholeheartedly agree that you have to feel like your child is ready to take on this kind of learning process, this life skill, and to some extent, you know, I kind of went on it on a whim, but we were towards the end of summer holidays and I really wanted to get Will at least started with this process before he returned to school, preschool, just to clarify. And I was also under the impression that a child had to verbally communicate that they needed to be able to go to the toilet or what they, you know, needed. And actually doing this course with Molly made me understand that actually a child doesn't need to be able to verbally communicate that they need to go to the toilet or they need some help or what have you, which gave me so much relief to feel that, okay, my child isn't talking as his peers would do, he's still going to be able to achieve this life skill that, you know, in theory comes to the majority of us. And it was a 2-phase program. It was 3 months access to the course, constant chat with Molly. You could ask questions at any point. She would return and respond with her recommendations. Very, very open communication, which was just amazing, because I think I got to maybe day 4, 5, 6 and thought, no, I shouldn't have done this. This is like not what the plan was. And thankfully Molly gave a couple of recommendations and we kind of switched things up and, you know, just kind of persevered. And I think probably 10 days, 2 weeks, and don't get me wrong, I was in the house for a very long time and I think I read the same book. I don't know, I could reel it off for you now if you want me to, but it was a way to kind of get Will's attention and engage and what have you. And it was a skill that he's now learned and he, you know, can do it all by himself, and I'm so proud of him. But I'm also so pleased I found somebody like Molly who came, you know, has created this program, and it was just what I really, really needed. So again, link to her course below if you're in that particular phase of your parenting. So just to recap those courses, the first one, Learning About Autism, was a free online course. The second one, Autism: A New Way Forward with Dr. Daniel Amen, that was an online course, lifetime access, £80 converted, I believe, from memory. And then the potty training course with Molly was an online course, 3-month access, and I believe £80 as well converted. So those are the courses that I've done so far, I think. Yes. Okay, so the next subject is around testing, which is potentially somewhat controversial, but I'm still going to talk about it because it's something that we pursued and it may be of interest. So all the kind of research that I've done online, and actually through the Autism: A New Way Forward course, there were already kind of thoughts in my mind about testing for deficiencies. You know, I would kick myself if I didn't pursue this, and there was just that one thing that just was holding Will back. And I have no qualms, would that be the right word? I have no issues with blood testing for children if it's appropriate, you know, any form of testing, if it's to then be beneficial for somebody, absolutely. So I did actually speak on the phone with a paediatrician who is aware of Will, and I did ask, do they do blood testing for children that are recently diagnosed, of which he said if there were issues around food then they would, otherwise they don't typically do so. I was advised I could ask at the next face-to-face meeting, but and somewhat impatient. So I started to look elsewhere. The only information I could find around blood testing was if you are under 18, and where we live, you'd have to go into London to access those sorts of testing facilities. Unfortunately, slightly out of our remit, so I looked elsewhere, and I was really lucky to know of a company that does DNA testing for adults on the basis that you then get your own personalised protein powders. Now, I reached out to the company, explained in a really vague manner of like what I'm trying to achieve, and whilst the testing isn't made for children, your DNA is exactly the same whether you're 4, 40 or 104. It will never change. So I was advised that I could get Will to do the test, but I wouldn't be able to buy any of the products because the protein content for the powders would be too much, and that was it, I think. So this test was also just a saliva swab, so again, non-invasive, which I was like, okay, well then that's going to be easier and better for Will anyway. So I ordered the kit, and it's probably all in all about a 2-week process, which again, when you're impatient, isn't ideal, but I knew that this was going to be for a really good reason. So Will was very tolerant of a saliva swab. I mean, I literally got in there, did what I could, and thankfully the sample was enough. You then get a full breakdown of a report. If I'm allowed to show you some of Will's report, I will. There were very notable I can't think what the terminology is now, but there were definitely things in there that I thought, oh, well, I wasn't expecting that, or okay, so I'll bear that in mind. Maybe we need to get some supplements of this sort of vitamin. And for me, it was money well spent, because obviously it's all stuff that I'm like building up for his profile to kind of really understand the kind of goings on of Will. I don't know if I can mention the company in the link below. If I can, then I will, but because it's not a child orientated DNA testing company, it may be that they ask me not to, and that is absolutely fine, but I wanted to mention to you that that is something else that we had done. Oh, it's cold. Okay, so the next subject I want to cover, again, it's somewhat controversial, is around food. Now, off the back of the Autism A New Way Forward course and the report back from Will's DNA test, made me start to think, okay, what do I need to add in? What do I need to take out? Now, don't come for me. I'm doing this for the greater good. We have taken out gluten and dairy, and of course refined sugar, because that doesn't do anybody any good, except it tastes delicious, and I'm fully aware of that. But we try and make it a very happy situation without those 3 things. And then what I wanted to do was add in things to Will's diet. So he's not a restrictive eater. He will try things that you put down in front of him. That sounds like I'm making him sound like a dog there, but you know what I mean. But generally, he knows what he likes, and he likes what he knows. And I think to some extent that is his age, so that's, you know, his personal preference and choice. But because he's not trying sushi here, eating stroganoff there, like, you know, I wanted to add things in. So one of them, or some of the few things that we add in that I feel are key and really beneficial. The first one is green powder, because he does not like his greens. So in his smoothie or a yogurt, I'll add in some green powder. What else? I've got a list here. Vitamin D, which the general consensus is that in the UK we should be taking vitamin D from, I believe, September to March anyway, even as adults, to kind of help us push through the winter. But for Will, I add in D3, vitamin D3. MCT oil is a healthy fat. Actually, his D3 currently is within MCT oil anyway, but MCT oil is very good for the brain by all accounts. We add in omega-3 oil, so that's like your fish oil, but all I do is pierce the capsule and then put it into a yogurt, or again like a smoothie, because I mean, actually it tastes okay, but it is a lemon flavoured fish oil, so but he wolfs it down whatever I put it in, so he is all good. And then I started to add things in like you know, like the thing that people rave about at the moment is like mushroom powders. Now what I understand is actually that lion's mane is like the one for neuro, but actually the one that I got, and I can't remember why I got it, was ashwagandha, so I sometimes put that into a smoothie or a yogurt. He does eat other things beyond those two things, by the way. And then I have things like cacao powder, beetroot powder, acai powder, because I wanted to be one of those trendies, just to try it out. And I love adding in those things. They're all things I eat and consume myself. I would never give him anything, I would never give Will anything that I didn't think was safe or that I wouldn't have myself. And just to clarify, with all of the kind of individual things that I have started to give Will, I've always approached the company first and said, this is my intention, I'm planning on giving it to my son. What are your thoughts? Can you tell me if I shouldn't be? And often the companies will come back and say, this product is not made for a child, you should consult so-and-so, but actually we have lots of people that give it to the dog or whatever, you know, so I feel a lot more confident that actually this is a suitable supplement or what have you to give Will. The other thing that I always do is I take every opportunity to add in spices, which in my mind, spices are warming and delicious. Warming equals blood flow is great. That's my theory. So whether Will's having peanut butter toast, and I'll always put on some nutmeg or some ginger powder or cinnamon powder. He always has cinnamon powder in his smoothies. So just any opportunity that I get to add on little bits. Even things like a honey sandwich, I will now do tahini and honey because it's just an additional little delicious boost. So those sorts of things. I'm being creative as I can be to kind of get all these different nutrients and flavours into him. I've just said it again, him to Will, all to see if it's beneficial for him. So yeah, that's food. Oh, as a little side note for food and supplements, I have started to try him out with collagen because it's meant to be really good for the gut. Your gut is your second brain. Diddly-da. And what was the other thing? There was obviously something because I felt the need to press re-record. Collagen. Oh, and probiotics. We don't have a current probiotic, but I was doing probiotic. In research and kind of in my mind, Will had chronic silent reflux when he was a baby. Did that ruin his stomach lining? Are we trying to rebuild it? Yes, we are. So as and when I can do probiotics, I do. There's another couple of recommendations that I've had for various different probiotics, but again, I'm always just going to make sure that it's appropriate for him. Will, appropriate for Will. And finally, we are at equipment. So where to start? To explain Will as an individual. That boy likes to run. Sometimes he kind of gets caught in that loop. Sometimes he just needs to get up and do something. And with that in mind, as far as I'm aware, and I've been advised, that is his vestibular system kind of needing some input. Interestingly, your vestibular system relates to your middle ear. What also affects your middle ear? A cleft. So that's for another video. So the bits of equipment that I have, have I bought some? Some I've bought, some I've already had, and some have come to me. That sounds very cryptic, but go with it anyway. So first off, I don't have them to hand. Let me go and get them. Okay, so first thing that I had, because I teach fitness, so a lot of these bits were around anyway, is dumbbells. So these are 1 kilo dumbbells, which to me is nothing. To Will, that is a bit of a challenge. I mean, the boy's got some muscles, so I'll give him that. And with the weights, I'll often get him to be like, come on, show me your muscles. Or pushing the weight above his head because that's working his heart, getting the old blood pumping, like I said. But generally, he just likes to lob them around. So we've got the dumbbells. I have what's this called? Yoga band. I should know, I do teach fitness. But I tie it up in a loop, and that is generally for my own workouts. But then often I'll get Will to kind of like try and pull it apart, push and pull here. Sometimes I'll wrap it around my waist and try and get him to pull me, or vice versa. You can also hang them, depending on how fragile your doors are, you can hang them on door handles and get them to pull. You can be really creative. These can go around the knees, they can go around the ankles, all again just to kind of help the body like reconnect and kind of go, oh okay, we're working here, get the blood flowing. I've got a yoga block, which we sometimes make little games out of, so like putting it, so my hand is the floor, and getting him to jump up and over like a hurdle, or even jumping forwards, of course, standing on it, trying out his balance skills and things. Really like simple, effective, and you can be creative. I can't believe I've even picked this up to bring it to you, but this has been used by lots and lots of clients, so it's not in the best condition. Ugh. But a Bosu ball. This, firstly, I love this thing for my own workouts. Love. But it's incredibly beneficial for a child that needs to move. So you've got your dome side, so your blue side, which is soft, and Will can run on it, he can jump onto it, he can jump off it, and kind of, again, like I say, get the heart pumping, and he just loves just jumping all over it, which is just really fun to watch anyway. And then your flat side, so then it goes dome on the floor, and I get Will to stand on it and kind of like work his core and help his balance, and often he's watching TV, I'll be honest, he's watching TV whilst he's then on this, and he's just having a wobble. If you imagine, like, I'm sure you get like little surfboardy kind of roller things, so you've got like almost like a pretend surfboard, and it's on a rolling thing, and it does this, and you kind of working out your techniques and your balance. It's almost like that, but I highly rate these. Now this was, I don't know, probably in the region of like £200, £150, but obviously for me it was mine in the first place for business, so it was just luck that we had it. But I really recommend these. If you don't want to buy one of these, even something like a general yoga ball, you can like roll them over it, they can roll on it, throw it up in the air, roll it on them. Like, there's so many things you can do with them, you just got to be a bit creative. And for me, this isn't a challenge because obviously with me having kind of teaching knowledge, and I used to do gymnastics, I've got that kind of some muscle memory, I'll be honest, but more than that, I have a little bit of kind of insider knowledge of things that I can do with Will. Okay, so the last bit of equipment that I want to talk to you about, and very quickly, is the Rezzimax. So huge shout out to Brain Development UK, who made me aware of the Rezzimax, who's supporting us on using it and creating the different exercises and combination of exercises that we need to do to support Will and his development. So this bit of equipment is, it targets the vagus nerve. More about that in another video, or research it. Highly recommend the research element of it. It's very interesting. It's a medically registered device in the US, and it vibrates, and you can use it on your patient or your person, using it along the body for different reasons, different techniques, different intensities, and I feel like this, plus some of the exercises with equipment and the other exercises that Brain Development UK have given me for Will and that we do, I really struggle to put it into words, but I feel like he is so close to being out of his shell. Is that a really weird thing to say? Like, I feel like I know who Will is, but in a social situation, definitely he doesn't show himself. And yet I feel like with the combination of everything that we're doing, he's starting to get there. And it is, I don't know if it's this, I don't know if it's this, like, you know, but everything combined really seems to be working, and I am so excited. Perhaps I can show you more of what we're doing with this, and even some of the exercises that we're doing, especially if you have a little one who needs that movement, and you know, maybe I can give you some ideas or show you what Will does when we get these bits and pieces out. But this particularly, I'm doing multiple times a day. So as an example, I will set this onto its highest intensity and work on Will's palmar reflex. I will then reduce the intensity and work on his face. So for him, obviously facial, you know, trauma, if we want to go down that route, you know, he wasn't able to feed. He was like having bottles put in when he didn't want them. Then obviously having a feeding tube meant that he didn't need to use his mouth. When we can brush his teeth, he has no reservations about that, but working on that front, the front 4 teeth it's not a stressful challenge, but it's not comfortable for him. And what I want is him to be super, super comfortable with his sort of mouth and face. And that sounds a bit of a weird way to say it, but I know that level of uncomfort, either when you're trying to talk and your mouth feels really restricted from surgery, or, you know, you kind of, I don't know, maybe I'm overthinking this, I don't know, let's put that there. But these are, as a recap, I want to kind of emphasize that these are all bits and pieces that I'm researching, that we're trying out. Using these bits is not going to be detrimental for Will, and that is my key. If it's not going to be detrimental, we might as well do it, you know. So anything that's going to help him become happy, healthy and confident and comfortable, like, why would I not do it? And I just hope that by sharing these little bits and pieces, maybe it's something that you'd be interested in looking at yourself. You may know of a friend who needs, you know, a different exercise or a bit of equipment to possibly use with their little one. But I really hope this is useful, and if not, insightful to the things that we're doing. And I'll see you on the next video. Bye.